growth is not necessarily one that is outward, right? But the real growth happens when you look inside and the journey inside of you and find out, and you're okay with your perception of you in the outside world to actually who you want to be from the inside of you. And I think if there's congruence in that, that's where a lot of growth happens.
Sup techies, we're back with another episode of Tech Society. We've got a good business friend here with us today, Sarab Singh. Sarab is the CEO of Corporate Sherpas and an expert in connecting business strategy and human capital investment. He specializes in addressing enterprise-specific challenges through personal growth strategies for leadership teams. Sarab's passion is to build leadership and management capability within his clients' organizations to enhance employee engagement, retention, and productivity.
How's it going?
Hey, Sarab.
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you for joining us today.
Typical day at home.
Hanging out there. Lovely.
Yeah, that's right.
Good to see you guys.
Can we start with just giving us a bit of a rundown of what you do, Sarah?
I'll share with you some pertinent details, I guess, but certainly I was explaining just about an hour ago to someone that I'm probably one of the luckiest kids you could ever have imagined. So I've had the most amazing life so far and loving it to bits, as you call it. So for the last couple of decades and more, in fact, I have been intrigued by why we think the way we think and why we behave the way we behave. And that subject has fascinated me, and I've dedicated and devoted a large portion of my life just kind of understanding that. And I've one of those lucky things, the lucky breaks you get in life to kind of just go, as you grow in deeper into it, you just realize, oh yeah, it's important. It's an important thing to understand. And now I sort of, in the Middle Ages, I think, well, that's critical to survival and life skills, is to understand why, what's this dark, mysterious art of human leadership. So that's the sort of stuff that I really delve in. And I guess to kind of reinforce that, rather, I used to run Customs and Border Protection. I was a senior bureaucrat there.
Oh wow! I did not know that.
Yeah, I was 15 years as a uniformed officer, mate, and
wow.
Then I was in Canberra leading large teams, mostly actually operational stuff that I probably shouldn't get into here,
of course.
but looked at, after things, and let's just call it lots and lots of high end enforcement stuff. And then I had the chance of actually being a scholar at ANU, and then went to Harvard Business School to study how innovation and human behavior is going to interact in these times to come.
That's quite a change.
Yeah.
So I take it that was you following your passion then.
It certainly was. It's something that, it's once you get a little taste of it, you just want to keep digging and finding more juice of it. So I think that's, to me, it's been a great journey so far. So you get what you see, and I guess sometimes I have to watch out because the passion can come through and overtake. But I'm these days watchful for that, because you kind of just go, this is what you should be doing. This is what I see. So I do ask for permission nice and early to people to say, do I actually have the permission to call it out as it is? Because I like to call things out as they are, not being afraid of it. So I'm a believer that, you gotta crack your eggs, you gotta break your eggs to make your omelette. So sometimes you just have to say things that are not nice to hear, but they're important to hear.
I guess that's the point. As you're not the yes man, and So you run corporate Sherpas. So can you tell us more about what corporate Sherpas does and how it helps businesses in the area?
Yeah, for sure, man. Like it's John. Corporate Sherpa is a new kind of project for me. I have another business called Illuminate Group, and that's been running for some time. But this is something that is a passion project for me, if you want to call it. And what we wanted to sort of go out to the world was with we've got some understanding about human behavior and where we can kind of help it. So, in fact, let me actually just give you the notion of why the name Corporate Sherpa.
I love that name, by the way, Corporate Sherpas. I think it's
it's
evocative.
Because it's like there comes a time in your life where you just kind of just go, you know what? I am just in awe of people's journey. So wherever they are, wherever they're going, and if people want to achieve goals and have lofty kind of peaks they want to climb and take on things that are really hard, I go, take me with you.
Isn't the Sherpa the guy though that climbs right up to the peak of Everest and doesn't get the credit?
That's right. There's an incredible amount of humility in that, Alex, because as we all know, Sir Edmund Hillary was the first man to climb up Mount Everest in 1953. But alongside him was Tenzing Norgay, that some people in the industry know about, but most of us, the general public, doesn't know about it. In fact, it's Sir Tenzing Norgay, because he got knighted as well. And we're no different. So, like I say to people, you are Sir Edmund Hillary. It's your goal. It's your journey. It's your glory. All I want to do is walk alongside you, and I'm happy to carry your bags. I'm happy to pitch your tent. I'm happy to cook for you, and I'm happy to tell you where the black clouds are brewing, and we need to hunker down and stay here, or I'll kick your backside if you're lazy. And I said, no, we're not stopping here. We're going to have to keep pushing for another 100 meters or so, because that is what's fulfilling for me. What I say to them is I'm happy to walk alongside you all the way through. What I'm not going to do is climb for you, because that has to be your journey. And it's education is not about me teaching you anything. It's actually about encouraging and drawing things out of you, which is a real buzz. And I'm satisfied with one thing, which I say, every journey is actually a sacred experience for us at Corporate Sherpas. So that's what we do from a notion of it, and that's why we actually started it, and that's why we exist.
So with all your experience with leaders, corporate leaders and SME leaders, do you think leadership is something you're born with, or is it a mindset that you can develop? And I suppose you must think it's a mindset you develop, because that's what you help people do, right?
Yeah. You are not born with it.
So do you think some people have an innate skill for leadership, or is it all kind of something you have to earn trial by fire?
It's the latter, very clearly. So I'm happy to debate anyone in the world. There is no such thing as that's your aptitude.
Mm-hmm.
I am a firm believer to say anyone can be anything. I know that's quite provocative to say that, but I'm a firm believer that anyone can be anything. And it's about your endeavor, your curiosity, and your mindset and your practice. So it's all about just that. So you choose who you want to be and what you want to be, and you are not limited. The only thing you're limited by is your own internal thought processes. And I think if we unblock that, we can realize some real potential.
Do you think there's something that like modern leaders are lacking? Because I think on the political spectrum, our leaders are maybe not as inspirational as they could be. And I think, do you think that kind of trickles down to leaders of business and leaders in the community as well?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, what the first things we need to do is see us in the right context, right? So, and I don't want to say the leaders are lacking or something, because the leadership that was practiced 20, 30, 40 years ago was the leadership required at that point. But I do believe the leadership that is required right now is quite different. It's because our context has changed. And the context has changed, and I'll just give you some very key points here. So up until the 1980s, in the modern history of mankind, right, we have been living in what we call an industrial age, right? So the mechanics, the flow of work and manufacturing and time motion studies and all of those things were quite industrial in its core. So the leadership that was required was to align the masses and the human effort to produce, say, a widget, for example, right? Where the leader was kind of almost taken out of that community to go, you go and get some learning, go and get some qualifications, and you go and get some experience. And when you come back, then we'll listen to you and we will actually march to your tune. Right? That was appropriate because education and information wasn't available at that point.
That's right.
Only a privileged few got that. So the leader's role was to be that charismatic leader who was able to be a great communicator and marshal their troops and command and control work really well. But since the 1990s and 2000s, so forth, we've moved into information age. So now, essentially, whatever the leader can do, this can tell me. I can debunk everything because it says, right? So everyone's walking around with all sorts of university degrees. Now you can actually even do surgeries by looking at your phone in your pocket. So we've moved out of that industrial age to information age. So, right? So that information age where now the team kind of just goes, we know, we've got the data, we can extract it, and we can make decisions. So it moved from the leader saying, I know, to the team saying, we know, right? Because evidence is right there. Big data is right there. It's about actually using technology and getting that out. But unfortunately, certainly for us in Australia, and let's just call it WA for now, since 2017, we have moved out of that information age again into what I call is the imagination age.
Imagination age. Is that from a positive
I was going to say
perspective or a negative? Yeah.
It could be both, because it really could be both. So with the whole step is industrial age, information age to imagination age. And this imagination age is actually all about creativity and imagination and innovation.
Our actual economies are starting to move that way as well.
a lot of policy as well. Yeah.
So it makes sense to see it in that lens, doesn't it? Because you kind of just go, the businesses that are doing really well over the last 5, 7, 10 years are what? Facebook and Uber and Google and Microsoft and Apple and those guys who thrive on imagination and creativity and so forth, right? So it's not just big data. It's not just big data. So we have to now outsmart and outthink. And so the leadership that's required now is a leader not standing in the front or relying on data and analysis and analytical stuff. It's actually born out of insight and genius. Right? And I'm not saying the leader needs to be insightful or genius. the leader now needs to create a platform where the big idea flourishes.
Ooh, I like that. That's inspirational.
So the leader is now just a gardener.
A facilitator. He helps push things along. Yeah.
That's right. So a gardener does not grow trees. Right? Because the DNA of that tree is written in the seed itself. All the gardener's doing is nourishing it appropriately with some sun, some water, some nourishment, some fertilizer, and dare I say it, a spray every now and then. Right? Because if that's what's required, that's what's required. The tree knows what to do. Right? So that's actually the role of a modern contemporary leader, is to understand the big title doesn't win. It's the big idea that needs to win. Is how do we actually ensure that the big idea rises up all the time and we're able to harvest it? So
that must be quite scary for, say, new clients of yours or leaders that you've lectured to, because that's... as you say, we've been a very command and control culture for, let's say, last 100 years up to very recently, but that's almost stepping away and allowing ideas to formulate and trusting in the process, which is scary. Can be scary.
It is, and Alex and John, I think I'll be very. I just want to be straight up here. Is one thing that the leadership that we have copped growing up isn't and cannot be the leadership we dish out to the people that we lead.
Yeah,
times have changed. The leadership that we received from our leaders in the past was in context of what we knew then. So we can't just say, well, that's the kind of leader I want to be. I think we have to be a lot more circumspect and a lot more pragmatic and a lot more respectful of our current times and understand what this is like. So, a good analogy to think about this. And we've had, so with this COVID-19 thing, one of the key things that have come out is in the news is the role of cruise ships, right?
Yeah.
So I want to use that analogy of a cruise ship. So we've run our businesses like we run cruise ships. It's all based on command and control. There is a clear hierarchy of how things are communicated and done. And so, say somebody actually notices that, hey, we need to turn hard left on this ship, or port side left, or whatever you want to call it. And then the guy on the bridge kind of communicates to the officer on deck, and the officer goes to the captain. The captain then issues the command to the chief engineer. The chief engineer says actually to one of his subordinate engineers. Then that goes to an able seaman who turns the lever left and starts thrusters, and then slowly ship's gonna turn left. In this modern, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world, that's too late. That's way too late. So what we need is, imagine now, instead of a cruise ship on top of a water, if you're able to run your organization like a school of fish that's submerged underground and underwater. Because that school of fish, there is no hierarchy, because the group has inherent knowledge within it.
I'm imagining some sort of hive mind.
Yeah, exactly. Because that school of fish, John, is like they have a amazing reorganization ability within itself. So so there is no queen fish as such that says, oh, you tell me what to do and we'll go in that direction. One fish sees danger, moves very quickly, and there is enough trust, faith, and communication in the group for everyone to follow suit quickly. If one fish sees opportunities, everyone goes, aha, there's something there, we need to move to it quickly. That is what the modern workplace and an organization will look like if it doesn't look like one now, to thrive in an environment where we need agility, we need creativity, and we need to actually get to things fast. Right? So the role of a leader is to be able to cultivate that mindset in anyone that's attached to that organization.
It's the opposite of learned helplessness.
Yes. It's initiative. So it's about, actually the opposite of that is then a full commitment to this notion of everyone has a responsibility to take the group or the team towards opportunities and away from risks as they see it from their viewpoint.
It's it's a lot to digest.
From what I feel is that businesses today don't operate like that. There might be an aspirational organizational structure for a business, but traditionally, even today, majority of businesses will probably be your standard top-down authoritarian style business. So what's the process to morph a business into something like that, where the school of fish trust each other and communication is seamless?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, certainly in the leadership space, there is where we stand from is this notion of making sure that we get really good at learning, unlearning, and relearning. So any aspect of it, that notion must continue, right? So one of the unlearning aspects of that is a leader saying with humility that, hey, my job and my context has first of all changed, right? So my success depends on not me looking good, but me creating an environment where good happens. So that's the first transition we need to make in the leaders' head, is kind of just say, man, it's okay if you don't come up with the best idea. In fact, it's illogical for me to think that you would have had an insightful experience with this for you to come up with an innovative solution to it. Right? So first of all, take the pressure off yourself to come up with that idea. So often what happens is we put a whole lot of pressure on us to say, we are the leaders, we need to kind of find a way through. Excuse my language, but I say, bullshit. You need, right? You're the leader. You need to make sure that there is best idea to get out of here, and I want to get to that best idea very quickly. And the best idea could be, I'm one of the contributors for that best idea, but there are multiple heads and brains that could come up with the best idea.
It makes me feel like, sorry, Sarab. It's like a buzzword now, the word innovation. So people can talk about how innovative a business is, but it's hard to measure. It's hard to quantify. It's hard to prove that you're doing it. You can say you do it, but where's the evidence? How do you prove an innovation is part of a business's DNA?
Yeah, let's come to that. Do you want to hold that question for me? Because
Sure.
I do. There's a couple of points I really want to make from the first question that was around the leadership aspect of it as well. What we have to do is, I want to be really blunt about this, to say, as a leader with this top-down command and control, I want to say to those people that the time for that lone genius is over. Right? We have to resign to the collective wisdom that exists in a group. And that group could be inside the firm boundaries, or it could be outside the firm boundaries. All right? So that idea could come from your clients, from your stakeholders, from your suppliers or partners.
So you see the leader as acting almost like a muse, not just with staff, but with customers and clients and external partners.
Yeah, now the leader's role is a storyteller and a facilitator. That's all. You're good at that. You're a good leader in my books, right?
I've always seen, personally, from my own perspective, and what's always kind of been a philosophy I've always kept and informed all my decisions with, is my job is to ensure that everyone in my team can do their job. And that is including inspiring them to come up with the ideas, because I don't want to come up with them all.
It's tiring, and well, it's good to know that you know, when I say I'm not the most intelligent person around here, so I just take the pressure off me.
Well, the leader's job should be to hire people smarter than them as well.
Exactly. That's exactly where that comes in. But I think what John, the question that you raised, I think the part where even talks about innovation but it doesn't actually fruition at all, is because we are too scared of failure. In fact, if I go to the core of that issue, is that we have often overestimated the cost of failure in our lives. We always overestimate it. You go, oh no, we can't stuff that up. We can't break that because it's going to cost us way too much. We in fact take it straight to the nth degree to say, if we don't get it, it's all going to be doom and gloom. I think that's where we start to overestimate the cost of failure, and yet we underestimate the value of learning. That's why we don't often even try. We don't exercise courage in trying new things, in different things. One of the things we have to remember is, and I describe this imagination age as part of the VUCA environment. That's something that when I went to Harvard Business School in Boston, that's all we spoke about, that it's a VUCA environment stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Right. So we know this has been in existence for us in the 4 or 5 years now, but unless we kind of just say, in this environment, we really have to be responsive and agile. And in this environment, there is no experience that was the case in the industrial age, and there is no data to support this. That was the case in information age. So now we've actually moved from the leader saying, I know, to the team saying, we know, to a state of mind we say, who knows? Let's give it a go.
Yeah.
Let's try this. And the barrier to that is the courage it takes to fail.
Embrace failure and learn from it in the end.
Well, I think you just have no choice, because the more novel the idea, the less experience and less data there is to support it.
Yeah. And that's actually, we interview a lot of people around startups, and that's always the number one advice is don't fear failure and be ready for failure, and don't worry if you fail. You can just try it again. You can do it again. You'll learn from your mistakes and you'll be better the next time.
But how does it fit in reality? It's good in theory advice.
Yeah, of course.
How does it translate to your young entrepreneurs and whatnot? Do you think they're actually genuinely not scared of failure, or are they still, there's a large element of that is still plays in their head?
There's always a fear, I think.
Yeah. And there's an ego there that says even if they're not afraid, it's because they're saying, I'm not going to fail because it's just not something I do. This is not coming from personal experience or anything. Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Present company excluded, right? Okay, let me, sorry, go on.
I was saying, and then you fail and you go, well, shit, that was actually okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
now that it's all cleaned
I
up.
look like a real dick, right?
Yeah. You kind of go, oh well.
Okay. So this is probably a really important thing to focus on. So certainly at Corporate Sherpa, what I want to do is we want to develop leaders like we have developed scientists before. Same way. So how you develop and build and train a scientist is how we should actually build and develop and train a leader. Because at the crux of it, as leaders, what's required in this VUCA environment or this age of imagination is for us, because we just don't know what's going to work or what's working or what's not going to work. What we want to be able to do is set up some experiments right? With all the controlling all the controllables we can, and kind of just saying, okay, let's make this as safe as possible, but let's experiment, because we've not tried this before, but let's just give it a go, right? And I'm going to watch it like a hawk, because if I miss it, then I'm missing some learning. So, and then I want to start the experiment, and I'm capturing every bit of data here. And as soon as I do, if the experiment succeeds, guess what? Well done. If the experiment fails, guess what? Only the experiment fails. I don't fail. Right? If I've set up an experiment, the experiment fails. I don't fail.
Yeah, the experiment already took it into account that could be a possible outcome.
It's very meta.
Yeah, it has to be an inevitable outcome, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's because people get very attached, emotionally attached to whatever they're building. And fair enough, I understand. But how they react to their own failure or the experiment's failure is up to them, isn't it? So there were some courses I did a while back when I was doing some zero harm stuff for one of the mining companies, and we went into locus of control a lot, and how it's all about how you react to things. You can control that. If the experiment fails, the only thing you can control is how you respond to it. And I think that's where you're getting at here as well.
Yes.
Is what's the next stage, or how do you learn from it, or what can you do from this? Is what you can control as a person.
Yeah, in fact, so that's the important part. But ensuring that, you know, the experiment that you conducted, because you just didn't know and nobody knows, you wanted to give it a go, right? So when you are trying these things, I think let's just take a step back for even 30 seconds and scratch our head and go, yeah, like there's every possibility that might not go ahead and that might not work. So what's current in our news at the moment is a chase for a vaccine for COVID-19. Can you imagine a scientist kind of just going, well, let's set up this experiment to see if this works, right? And say, for example, it doesn't work. What do you want the scientists to do? Kind of just go, oh, it looks like it was a big company.
Put his hands up. I'm out.
Yeah. Can you do that? Like, that's not even logical.
Like cancer research. I didn't cure it.
I'm out. I think it's a defeatist attitude that most scientists don't have. And the reason why they're into researching and doing R&D is because they want to discover the answer.
That's it. You know? That's the point I'm trying to make. And that's how we need to develop leaders, because I know I don't have the answer, but I want to give it a go. And I want to give it an intelligent go, not just chuck grenades into this experiment to see what this happens, right? So that's a mistake. So mistake is different to a failure.
Yep.
Because a mistake has no inherent learning in it. You're just being lazy, or you just didn't care and you started doing things that you shouldn't be doing. But a failure is something that you've tried something really hard and it didn't come out, but there's abundance of learning in it. And I think the most important part of that is, I actually want to talk about this subject called the mindset, right? Which is, and the differentiation here is the growth in fixed mindset, right? So Carol Dweck, who's kind of the lead researcher into these two different mindsets, she's kind of sort of figured out that two people, equally qualified, equally experienced, there is one key marker of success, and that is a person with a growth mindset compared to a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset person kind of views the world as, this is who I am, this is my aptitude, and that's what I'm good at, and there are some other things that I'm not so good at. Which goes to the first question Alex asked about leadership. Are you born with it? Are there some traits that you get to, or this, that, or the other? So that view of the world. So I could say, well, I'm good with people, but I'm terrible with numbers. Right? or I'm not a very good singer, or I'm not a very good public speaker, or I'm a fast runner, and that's what I do. Right? So that's kind of my notion or my idea of who I am, and that's generally fixed with the aptitude that I have. A person with a growth mindset is completely different. A person with a growth mindset is like that. I can learn, and I can do anything I want.
Anything can be accomplished.
Yeah, like if you want me to play a saxophone, I'll give it a go. If you want me to play a grand piano, I'll give it a go. It's just a matter of time.
Exactly, it's all time, isn't it? So I'll get there eventually.
It's time, effort, energy, focus, all that sort of stuff, and the spirit of never giving up. Right. So that's a growth mindset. Now, what happens is there are two different things in it. So the core belief, right? The core belief is of a fixed mindset is skills are born, and a core belief of a growth mindset is skills are learned. Right? Now, if that's the core belief, then the focus also changes. So the focus for the fixed mindset is if you're born with a skill set, then the focus is to actually put them in the best light. Right? So do the things that you're good at and avoid the things that you're not so good at. That's the focus. The focus for a growth mindset is skills are learned and over time. So if that's the core belief, then the focus goes on to the process of getting better. So one is be good and look good. The other one is get better.
Yeah.
Who's going to win over time?
Get better every time.
Every phone call, every conversation, every day. The results are inevitable if you just get better. And you know what? The sad part about human endeavor is that we were all born with the growth mindset. We're all born with that. So Alex and John, when you were toddlers and I was a toddler, guess what we did? We propped ourselves on a chair, and then we started taking first 2 or 3 steps, and we fell down. Right? When we started to wanted to use the spoon ourselves, where did the food go? Anywhere but our mouth. Right? But not once as toddlers, we said, oh, shit, I hope nobody was watching. That was pretty embarrassing. I fell down.
Like, I'm terrible at eating food. Maybe I'll just not bother.
That's right. Right? Or walking is overrated anyway. I'm happy to just crawl. We don't do that.
An adult is far more likely to do that.
Yeah, but you know what? As we get into our adolescence, we start to have an idea of who we are, and we start to protect that idea of who we are. Right? And we in a common layman's term, we call it the ego comes in. Right? To protect your ego and this, that, or the other. But I think that's a conversation you probably need to have with yourselves to kind of just say, what's that role of ego playing here? So the whole idea is we need to keep that to a rest and go, but how do I get better? Because by the adolescence, I don't want to grow up with a whole library of things that I suck at, and I've got no intentions of ever trying again. And that comes into workplaces.
Yeah. I definitely have a whole library of things I suck at and never tried again, but not because I didn't, I was put off by my failure. I just realized that I actually didn't want to do them. Actually, John always makes a good point because I'll often say, let's say, for example, I wish I spoke Mandarin. And John will say, well, why don't you learn Mandarin? I say, I don't want to, but I want to speak Mandarin. There's some things I don't want it enough, and I'm okay with that.
and that's a really important question to ask. And look, I am a very bad person to go to a restaurant, because if I like, I love my food, and I always kind of just challenge the status quo and say, I like this dish, but I don't like that. But can I have it this way? And often I'll get a response, oh, sorry, we can't do that. I said, and the other day I got a little bit upset. I said, well, you can't do that, or you don't want to do that.
Yeah, you can't or you won't. It's different. Yeah.
That's right. Please ask the chef that he can't do that or he doesn't want to do that.
And then the chef will have his ego.
Yeah.
The chef will be like, of course I could do that. I'll do it right now. I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah. So I think we need to change that vocabulary in the workplaces as well for ourselves and others and our colleagues. I do want to bring it back to a workplace setting. You can just see how important these conversations are for us to stop and reflect and go, but what's actually going on in the brain here? And are we approaching this with a fixed mindset to say this can't be done, or are we approaching with a growth mindset that, hey, look,
how do you foster a growth mindset in someone that doesn't have one? That had it beat out of them, say, by their parents or the school system or the, many kind of negative influences one can have in their formative years.
Yeah.
How do you? It's a really open-ended question. I get that. Like, it's probably different for a lot of different people too. But in your experience, what has helped people that switch that around?
Yeah, I can give you a very clear answer on that one, a very definitive answer on that one, actually. So my answer to move people out of a fixed mindset into a growth mindset is actually to stop rewarding outcomes and applauding the process of getting better. So what we do is, you've seen it in any business, when they win a contract, when they achieve something that's a target. We've even got these bells in our office, and they ring the bell, right? I'm not sure whether you guys have it or not.
Yeah, we do.
We ring the bell.
We bring it for a lot of stuff, though, not just the wins, I would say. So
yeah, good. So I'm going to say to you, stop ringing the bell when you reach an outcome.
Okay, that's really powerful. And actually, I've never heard that before. And I read 1 million books a year, and that's actually advice I've never heard before.
If you're not rewarding,
really powerful.
If you're not rewarding outcomes, what are you rewarding instead?
Effort.
You're rewarding endeavor and you're rewarding curiosity.
Yeah.
So the outcome is not always in your control, but your endeavor and curiosity and your application is in your control.
Very cool.
So let me give you an example. Yesterday, no, it was 2 days ago, in fact. So my 5-year-old learned how to ride a bike by himself, right? So he didn't give up, but I was because I was hoping that he would not actually nail it, but he did, right? It was way too quick, but I thought he'd be falling down, and this is so 40 minutes into it, while he still hadn't got it. He said, no, stay here. I want to stay here. I want to nail it. I want to see it. I want to keep trying. Because
stole your dad moment.
Yeah, I talked to him about growth and fixed mindset, right? And he knows Papa loves growth mindset and hates fixed mindset.
Wow.
So, and that's a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So at the 42-minute mark where he was going, I just stood up and gave him a big applaud. I said, I love the fact that you kept on at it. It doesn't matter whether you've got it or not. Who cares? It'll happen one day. But the fact that you kept trying and you didn't give up and you didn't cry when you fell down, I want to say, well done. And you've got 5 reward points for that. And his reward points, when he gets 5, so he was 95 out of 100. So he got to his 100 reward point, and then we went and got his Lego as a reward.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Yeah.
But it just so happened 3 minutes after that, he actually nailed it. Because the results are inevitable, right?
So do you still reward the outcome as well, or do you kind of downplay that?
Look, what I do though, important to do at that point is when you sometimes have no choice, but just happens that it's come to a fruitful deal. So please go to some length and at pains to work out what was the effort, what was the process that actually got them the outcome, and just highlight that aspect. So you go, well, that's the result. That was inevitable, mate, because this is what we did. This is, you chose to put the effort here. You chose to speak with this person here. You chose to stay back till 12 o'clock and actually make sure all the T's were crossed and all the I's were dotted before we actually sent that tender in.
Do you apply that internally? And would that kind of philosophy, do you think that would work for someone who's very win focused, who's competitive and just wants to win, which obviously in business can be quite advantageous, if not a bit destructive, personal life wise. But it's a fine line between from an internal philosophy. What's like, do you apply that internally to yourself as well? Where you like, I don't want to say pat yourself on the back, but think about the journey more than the outcome.
100%. So look, let me go to the first part of the question. So if somebody loves to win, look, deep down we all love to win. Yep. One is. But one's actually just relentlessly focused on the outcome to win. Once they've won, great. And if they haven't, they've lost everything, right? So I think that's what I want to get away from. Yeah. Say we all want to win, right? For the greater good or whatever you want to, whatever context you want to use it for. Now, I'm a big believer in, let's all win. I want to win. You want to win, but winning is an outcome, it's a symptom of an effort. But it's not an end or a means in itself. So say, for example, if you're running an organization and somebody just happens to have a beer with a mate whose dad owned something and it just gave you a $1 million contract, do you reward that? Or do you reward the person who has, for the last 8 months, followed a process and a structure to bring in business, and they've nailed it, the process and the structure, but they've not got the deal? Who do you reward? So that's a rhetorical question, right?
It is tough though, because you do want to incentivize people bringing in the business, but then I guess if you're a great place to work or with the correct rewards already for your stuff, then they'll want to do that anyway, right?
Yep. So here I am, who would make a song and dance about the person who followed our process. I'd go, well done, man. Great job. Good luck. We got that. Thank you. Because what I don't want to do is for next year is turn my strategy to luck. I want to turn my strategy to a better process.
To something provable, an experiment.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep changing and working on that, but I need endeavor.
And repeatable processes and
I'm happy to die and live and die by my sword, but like if I just go, I'll just have no process, have no reward systems for following those processes, but I'm happy to just take luck as it comes and reward it every time. People are just waiting to be lucky. Right? I'm having copious amounts of beers in all the pubs just to get lucky again.
You should start hiring the luckiest people.
That's right. Your induction is at the casino. Let's see how many times you win.
Yes, right.
I mean, that's a joke, but I think a lot of the big firms do that. They hire people who are lucky to be born with large networks of rich family friends, but that's still luck, still based on luck, and it's not a long-term strategy.
Yeah, and look, I don't get me started because we'll go off on a tangent, and that's a debate that I think we have around public and private schooling. Yeah,
That is a big debate.
It's a big debate because it's the people going to private schools are lucky enough to have networks who are decision makers in large firms and businesses and so forth. So that's a common commentary out there. But this is a migrant kid, came here as 14-year-old with no networks and with $20 in her pockets, with my family, my parents and siblings, and I'm lucky. I am. You're looking at the most fortunate guy who's blessed with other people's generosity, and you make your own luck. I think if we're biased about one thing in Australia, is we're biased towards people who give it a go. We love that. We love people who give it a go, and we have a strong bias for that.
It's an Australian saying, isn't it? Give it a go, mate. Sure,
yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that needs to be harvested to our full advantage. If that's part of our culture, that's part of our DNA in Australia, I think we should do that. We say, mate, you put it behind you. That's another saying. Is if this doesn't work, put it behind you and just move forward. So but somehow we get trapped into this new notion of we need to come across as we know what we're doing, right? So with our own vision of ourselves is I want to be like it or not, I want to be a know-it-all person. I'm a nice wise man. I know it all, and I think that's fraught with danger. So certainly one of the things that I'm very keen to do in the organizations that I lead and I help is I say, rather than being a know-it-all person or know-it-all organization, I want us to be a learn-it-all person or a learn-it-all organization. That's much better because it takes us out of that fixed mindset to the growth mindset.
And that should be something that informs people's hiring decisions. We've always been very clear that we don't hire people who know all the things we need them to know. We hire the people with the drive and determination and curiosity to figure it out. I could never imagine putting in any of our job adverts requires 12 years experience with blah. I don't even want the kind of person who sat there doing the same thing for 12 years. That's
exactly. And my business is no different. So at Corporate Sherpa or even Illuminate Group, we say to people, look, I'm not going to hire you for your time. So I don't care how much time you put into this job, right? I'm not even going to hire you for your skills and knowledge, because I don't care what skills and knowledge you've had thus far. Because the field that we deal in, which is neuroscience, human behavior, organizational psychology, there is stuff that we have yet to discover. There is stuff that we have yet to actually find out. So what the skills and knowledge are an indication of what's been done in the past, what's been learned in the past, not what you're going to learn in the future.
Mm-hmm.
What you're going to learn in the future is more valuable than what you've learned in the past, right? So I'm only going to hire you for your level of curiosity and your endeavor. So if you're naturally a curious person and you're naturally a person who doesn't shy away from putting the effort in and resilient and not giving up, and like John, you said, a person who's got a very strong mindset of ILOC, which is internal locus of control, well, come on in. Come on in. Because that's we say to people, like, this is how far we've got this wagon to. come and push it along and see where you can take it.
Just to go back on something you said before, one of the questions I like to ask people is, what do you think personal growth actually is, what it means? But I like that you've kind of already answered it, because you talked about a baby learning to walk, and that's a perfect example of personal growth.
Yeah.
Not one that people really think about, but it's one of the first obvious moments of personal growth.
Yeah. Look, can I give you a quite a radical answer to that? So, and I say to people, and this is going in a satirical philosophy here, but I actually think growth is not necessarily one that is outward, right? But the real growth happens when you look inside, and the journey inside of you, and find out, and you're okay with your perception of you in the outside world to actually who you want to be from the inside of you. And I think if there's congruence in that, that's where a lot of growth happens. So, when I was a toddler, I wish somebody had told me, man, it's not about you taking steps and walking and running and going somewhere. Your journey is an inward journey. So go find yourself inside, who you are, what you want to be, and just enjoy life as it presents you, and know what you want to do in life. I think that is an incredible personal growth, is a journey that I take people on, because I think deep down I've realized that it's the collective unconscious of notions of who we are and what success looks like on the outside world. But deep down, there's another journey that's waiting to be undertaken.
That's huge. Yeah, I mean,
sorry,
it's a bit deep for a toddler.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, it took me a really long time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do in a big picture sense, not just as a job. It's I don't know if I found it or if it just found me.
Yeah. And wouldn't you agree that once you discover that, then you don't, like to say, you don't work a day in your life. Yeah. You're in absolute flow, and things manifest themselves for you to have chance meetings and chance encounters, and you make your own luck, and you follow your passion, and that's what leads to real innovation and commitment. And I want to circle that back into, I think that is the role of a modern leader, is to be able to respect that individual and their calling, and enabling them to actually achieve all the things they can be. So if as a leader, you can get people to be in an absolute flow of what they want to do and what makes them smile, I think everything else is a symptom and an inevitable of that.
That's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, it's okay to have long pauses of thought, because some of these things, when they hit our core, they're important. Yeah? So don't. Like, silence is a very powerful thing. In fact, if we just discovered stillness and silence as kids, and I'm hoping that's what kids discover now. That's where insight happens. So I think that's there are some technical ways of leading creativity and insight and whatnot, but a powerful gate to that is finding time. And I presume a lot of your audience here will be young entrepreneurs and people who are actually working incredibly long hours and incredibly hard. And my advice to them is, please find some time in a day where you can find some stillness. And when you stop and when you're nice and still, that's where the world opens up and the connections open up.
And that's really difficult for young entrepreneurs. And my own personal experience is, any time I take to recharge, even still, I have to push past that feeling of guilt. Why aren't I working? Or why aren't I doing chores? Like not necessarily on the business, but just in general, why aren't I producing?
Yeah.
Giving yourself permission to recharge is, I still haven't really figured it out.
Yeah, and there are some fantastic neuroscientific studies that actually show how you have engaged your right brain, and that only comes through stillness. So if on one side you're saying we want to be innovative and the first step of innovation is creativity, the creativity is going to come from your right brain, not your left brain. Your left brain's going to help you process it through analytical, rational thought and logical thought, but the actual creativity is going to come from your right brain hemisphere. So if that's the case, why would you not stop and create it? So I can. So if I've got the pen, right, I can engage you on your left brain and go, okay, give me all the hard associated words with pen. What would come to your mind?
So desk, work.
Desk, work, more.
Yeah.
Let's just brainstorm. Let's just go through it. What are the
words associated with pen?
Pen, yeah.
Handwriting, signature.
Handwriting, signature. Good. What else? Quick.
Homework.
Pencil.
Homework. Fast. Let's go. Keep going. Ruler. Expression. Study. School.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Education.
Yep.
And the more I put you under pressure, the more hardwired responses I'm going to get to associate it with the word pen. But we can associate the word pen with a pig as well, or the pig pen. That's a right brain connection, right?
The abstract thought.
Abstract thought is a right brain connection. And the more stressed and fatigued you are, the more tired you are, less and less likely that you'll be able to tap into your right brain abstract thought that redefines the whole problem itself and comes up with a very innovative solution. If that is where innovation lives, if that is where creativity lives, why? So if you've ever grown up with this notion by your parents saying, don't just sit there, do something, right? I want to flip that for you and I go, don't just do something, sit there.
Why clean when you can lean?
Yes, that's right. But I think it's important thing as a personal growth is to be able to be comfortable in your own silence and actually engage in deep thought to come up with abstract stuff. The world's still, there's so much innovation yet to happen.
Absolutely.
Right? We just need time to think through it clearly.
It's not, that mindset is still not fostered, I think, apart from trailblazers like yourself.
I wouldn't call it trailblazer, but that's an uncomfortable. But I'm a deeply conscious person. So what I do pride myself in is I engage with deep level thinking and conscious thinking. So if you can outdo me on that one, you can be my mentor any day.
So
yeah.
I take it then you're a big proponent of mindfulness and do you study mindfulness and meditation? And
I have.
Any advice to people who struggle
who don't do it
Did
at
you
all.
ever struggle with that? Yeah. I've only just been able to learn how to meditate, I'd say in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's transformative, but I can't tell you why. To be honest, I can't tell you what changed internally for me that I could.
And there are people like myself who don't do anything and don't know what they're missing out on or how to look into this kind of stuff. So,
yeah, well, that's my job. I can explain what happens when you engage in mindfulness or meditation, right? I know what chemicals are released in the brain. I know the impact of that in your thought and your well-being and all that sort of stuff. So neuroscience has actually opened up so much for us over the recent years. So what used to be the Eastern mythical art of yoga and meditation and mindfulness is actually now been scientifically uncovered, and without a shadow of doubt. And the more it happens, the more we're doing it. Not sure if you have more time for it, but I'm happy to discuss. There are actually two large networks in the brain. So we know the structures of the brain and different parts and what different parts of the brain do and whatnot. But more recently, we've kind of focused on the two different networks of the brain. So one is what we call a default mode network, and the other one is called a direct experience network. So the default mode network, by the nature of it, is that it's on all the time, right? The default mode helps us remember and think. So it helps us think of ourselves in the future and ourselves in the past. It helps us think of others in the future and in the past. So it's on the whole time. So 99% of the day, you're actually just running on your default mode network. So just imagine you are standing on the beach somewhere in Scarborough or Trigg or wherever, and you look down and you realize, oh no, you've actually got sand on your feet. And suddenly you realize, oh, I've got to go back to my car, and oh geez, I told my spouse to leave my beach towel in the boot because I need to wipe my feet down, because if I just go in, I'll be sand all over my mats, and these mats are a pain in the neck to actually get the sand out. It'll take me an hour to vacuum it out. And actually, by the way, that reminds me, my next door neighbor, his kids are, you know what, they are so helpful. They're always helping their dad cleaning the cars. And my kids, they just can't get enough of this bloody iPad and PlayStation. And talking about which, next thing they'll ask me is to say, oh, we want another video game or something. What do they think? I'm some sort of an ATM. Don't they know this COVID-19, everything's in chaos, and I'm not sure if I'm going to retain my job. And on that, the car, geez, my wife, what can I tell you about her? Like, my mechanic that takes me, like, it's an here ripoff. So can you just imagine that person standing on the beach where his mind is taken?
yeah.
Right? So that's a default mode network that's unchecked, that keeps going. The direct experience network, on the other hand, just allows you to notice and feel the sand under your toes. It allows you to smell the ocean when you're there. It allows you to feel the breeze flowing through your face and your hair. It allows you to hear the crash of the waves on the shore. And that's all you're doing. Right? So what we do know is that more you engage with your direct experience network, physiologically your amygdala is shrinking. So your threat response gets harder and harder to trigger. And not just that, what you're doing is, when you're in the direct experience network, you're fully there. So when I'm having this conversation, that's all I'm doing, is having this conversation. I'm nowhere else.
You're not planning tonight's dinner or figuring out what you need to buy from the shops. Yeah.
And when people get introduced to me, one of the comments as a facilitator, you often get, how do you remember people's names? Well, I said, it's pretty easy. When they introduce me to them, that's where I am. So you go, I'm Alex. And you go, g'day, Alex. How you going? I'm not, I'll just say the g'day, Alex, where I'm going, but I have to now also preparing for what I say to Alex. I say, I'm Sarab. And what do you do? And this is what I do, right? So I'm nowhere else. I'm not in the preparation or waiting for you to stop moving your lips so I can respond, right? I'm only there. I'm just interested in who you are. Who cares about where else I need to be? So, one of the best life lessons I ever got on that was, who is the most important person in your life? And so if I ask you that question, who is the most important person in your life? Who would that be?
I feel like it's a trick question.
A trick question, yeah.
It is, yes, it is a trick question.
It's myself.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll justify that because my partner might watch this.
I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah. So I always liken it to ambulance officers, ambos. They're not allowed to run. They're not allowed to run to help the person on the ground, even though, that could save 30 seconds. Yeah. Because if they run, they might fall over and they might injure themselves, which means they can't help anyone else. So they are always their top priority. Their safety is number one, because if they are compromised, then no one else can be helped.
That's right. So the first mask of oxygen in an air crash is for you before you help anybody else, right?
Yeah.
Exactly that. Yep. So yourself. John, what would you say? Who's the most important person in your life?
It'll be me. Because similarly, me, I can control what I do with myself. Yep. It gives me potential to do more for others as well. Yep. So as long as I take care of myself, my health, my life, my happiness, it means that I can actually help all the others that are important in my life as well.
Yeah. All right. So let me just change the tack a little bit more. So who is, after yourselves, who is the next most important person in your life?
That would obviously be my fiance. I love you.
My wife, they're my family, of course. They're my friends.
Yeah. Okay. So let me sort of twist that around a little bit, right? So in the context of what I was saying, I'd like you to consider that the most important person in your life has to be the person in front of you. Because if you have chosen to give them that time, right? You chose to give them that time. So you might as well make them the most important person in your life.
So it's ephemeral. The most important person is the one who is actually in
changes over time.
Yeah.
So it was a trick question.
Yes, it was.
Oh, yeah. It was way trickier than I actually anticipated.
Yeah, because then what happens is, or the most important task in your life is the task that you're doing in that moment.
Yes.
So what you're saying, Sarab, is that you're the most important person to us.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Right? And
it's
you
very,
are
very wholesome, isn't it?
To me. Maybe in 5 minutes' time, you won't be the most important person because somebody else will be the most important person in the next 5 minutes. And when my kids come home from school, they might be more important than anyone else. Or my wife comes in, she'll not like that. It's whoever I choose that moment to give. If that moment is for me, then I'm the most important person. I'm the one standing on the beach, then I'm the most important person. If I'm the one who's swinging a golf club by myself, that's the most important moment and the most important process. Everything else, if that was more important than that moment, then I should have been there.
Yeah. Right.
It's
very deep.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does. It's logical.
But it helps you engage in direct experience network.
Yeah.
And encourages active listening, which is something people could really utilize more.
For sure.
Because if you have that approach, then active listening is just the default. It's not something special. It's just how you operate. Hence why you remember everyone's names.
That's right. And I think it's actually just being in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. and I'm not sure how much time you have, but we can talk about listening if you want. In terms of listening, I think that's a really important skill we need to build in certainly from a leadership perspective, right? And I'm going to call it out as 4 levels of listening. So the first level of listening is what we're kind of doing at the moment. So we're listening to agree. So when John says something that I agree with, or when Alex, you say something that I agree with, we're happy to listen, and we can kind of listen to each other and respect what the audience is going to go for. If they are inherently congruent to the belief systems that we've talked about, they're happy to listen to it, right? They go, I want to listen more. I want to have a bit more of this. So that is a very natural thing. So listen to agree. That's the first level. The second level is where you listen even though you disagree. That's really hard. That requires a huge amount of energy and focus and discipline to listen even though you disagree. Because what happens is if I've said something or you've said something that I fundamentally disagree with, then I've actually in that moment, my attention has gone from you to my background and my experience, and now I'm crafting a story and preparing myself to respond to that, right? Because that's been a bit of a dissonance in my world to yours. So all I'm doing is waiting for your lips to stop moving before I can come back. Yeah, but you've lost me. I'm actually not listening to you at all. So can I suggest a really simple technique is to sell yourself, is that almost say, I will listen, especially when I disagree. Right? So as a leader, I will listen, especially when I disagree. Because the 3 fundamental values to me when it comes to this is I have this belief, and core to my belief is that I value you, I may not be right, and please help me understand. That's the reason why I say I'm probably the most conscious person around, because I'm the best learner around. I go, I value you, I may not be right, and please help me understand. And if that's my core belief, and if you say something that I don't hold the same view, then you've got all of my attention. I'm going, yeah, tell me more. Why would you, an intelligent person, your experience, say that? I want to learn, right? So either you will learn or I will learn.
At what point do you stop that and go, okay, no, it's time to it's time to let you have it. Yeah.
Is this again with your partner that you're thinking? Is that
No.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't the case, right?
we have a relationship of radical candor, so we don't struggle with that, thankfully. And radical candor is something that I try to inform my interactions as well, and that includes listening to people. You can't be honest if you don't listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's in fact, I think it's this quote is attributed to Abraham Lincoln, who said, "I don't like that man. I want to spend more time with him."
Yeah.
Yeah. So to go, why is it that this is so important? So I think building that capacity to listen and hold a different viewpoint is so important in life, in our skill as a leader, as a skill as an entrepreneur, is to kind of uncover what must be going on that I just don't know enough about. While we're on quotes, I want to share this with you. So let's give this to Mark Twain, right? And the quote is, "It's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so that gets you into trouble."
Yeah, that's so true.
Right? So I think it's important that we know that our brain is limited. in comprehension and its abilities. So I think it's important that we kind of say, sorry, not me, not now. So I'm keen to listen and I'm keen to learn. So that's the second level of listening. The third level of listening goes into actually deep, intentful listening, right? So, and I'm going to answer your question. So what time do you stop? Right? So there is no time to stop, because all you're doing is I'm now listening into the full person and the full story. So when John speaks with me, or when Alex speaks with me, I'm not just hearing what you're saying, but I'm actually hearing what must be true in your life and your experience for you to hold that view. So it's unconditional in that perspective, I guess, because I'm not here to judge.
Some views are very toxic, though. How do you consolidate that?
So when somebody's actually having a go at you and becomes quite toxic, and
potentially, or maybe their ideas are toxic, racism, sexism. Some ideas are objectively bad.
Yeah, what a great question that is. Look, in my life, I've gone beyond this need to correct people. Yeah, because I'm actually in awe and in love with the journey that they're actually on. So all I'm doing is, in that moment, I'm just relishing. What's your journey? Where are you at the moment? Where have you come from, and where are you going? Without wanting to interfere with it necessarily, right?
So it's like curiosity.
Yeah, it is like it's a viewpoint that you hold. I probably don't agree with it, and probably the vast majority of people don't agree with it, but who cares? But it's just that I don't want to buy into that, not yet anyway. Or either I might change my mind later on, or you might change my mind, your mind later on. But all I'm doing is I'm beyond that need to correct you. I'm just going, this is who you are. I will take one exception to it, is that if that interferes with the safety of myself or my loved ones, then I will make sure that there are barriers to neutralize them. So I'll just go, that's fine, you can hold your view, you have your view, but you're no longer welcome to be in
far away from here.
Yeah. That I just don't want to deal with that. That's not a risk I want to have my kids here or have my family here, those views. So I'm going to neutralize you, and I'm not just going to engage with that. But I've gone beyond wanting the need to correct people. So
that's a big one. And family Christmases would be a lot nicer if everyone gave up that need to correct people. Absolutely hold myself.
Yeah, but it's just listening into the full story of the person ultimately, right? And look, sometimes there is that fourth level of listening, which is quite reflective, which is where you do it at the end of the day, you and your journal, and this is the time where, whether it's the family Christmas stew or otherwise, the people who really get your goat, Alex, it's for those people, and you got to imagine that they are just an actor placed there to act out a role for you to learn about something about yourself, right? So say Joe Bloggs is got a view and whatnot, you just got to say, well, that's Joe Bloggs is an actor playing out a role for me to understand a bit more about myself as to why I like that or why I don't like that, what is so abhorrent for me, or what isn't so attractive for me, whatever that is. So that's a much deeper, reflective kind of listening into yourself. So you have to listen into yourself. Who am I and what do I want to be? And is that just mirroring something that I don't like about myself? And do I need to change that?
Sounds harder than just listening to them.
It is the fourth level.
That is, and I think there's no more listening after that. And then after that, you cover your ears. You see,
Yeah.
evil. Has that been helpful today? I'm not sure if this was intended to be. It's
that's good. It was very deep, very philosophical.
Really great content. I think you're. We always put like a highlight at the start. I think you're going to challenge our editor as to which bit goes at the start, because there was a lot of really juicy bits that you can really sink your teeth into. So thank you for that.
And look, one of the things. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I like I said to you, there was a warning in there or disclaimer to say I'll just call it like it is and not shy away from making the point, but I'll try and do it in a respectful manner. So I hope I've been able to do that.
100%.
Yeah, but I do think I love doing this, and if there's a need for it, happy to contribute to it. I think Lan was saying that one of the projects that's close to your heart is that Ninja Academy.
Yes.
So that is certainly something we should get together and actually talk about. Where we could probably collaborate and actually reach out to a lot of people with some good knowledge. So what we've just discussed is a little tip of the iceberg, but understanding what we're talking about and why that happens. I think, unfortunately, some of these things are never taught in schools or universities or even in businesses for such a long time. It's expected that you learn through osmosis, but it's a hard act to do that. So
it's one of the things long term. Obviously, we like our Ninja Academy is just focusing on the tech skills at first, but what our long-term goal is like an entrepreneur finishing school, which I feel is more mindset than it is skill set.
And I think that's where Corporate Sherpa and Ninja Academy kind of work together to kind of combine that. I think that's what we would love to do.
That would be fantastic. Actually, it would like accelerate our kind of dreams. So yeah, I'd love to get together and have a coffee and a chat about that.
Yeah, because I'm finding, with the people that we deal with have stayed, and there's a lot of unlearning to do before new learning can take place. And if we can get fertile ground and young minds who will be our future leaders and really take this community forward, I think that would be a very fulfilling project to take on.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's why we're doing it. Certainly not to get rich.
That's right. However, you do the right things and it's only inevitable.
I agree.
If that is one of your needs, right?
That's a deeper question for later.
Yep. If you need to be rich and if you want to be rich, you should go for it and do it. I do, certainly. Because I think I can do a lot more with cash and put it in the right places in the right areas.
I also like time, and being rich means you can buy a lot more time. Sure, yeah.
And do I give that perception with my armchair? And next time I'll put my red velvet jacket on and a cigar and a pipe.
Yeah. You can get a fireplace in the back as well.
Fireplace, maybe a bloodhound or two just on my feet.
I like that. Yeah. One final question. We always ask a bit of a fun question at the end. So you're throwing a dinner party.
Yeah.
And your guests all have to be deceased. You have 5 guests. Who would they be? And why?
5 guests, who would they be? I've never actually had that question posed to me. What a great question that is. I'll give you a pretty deep answer, and that would be, I would say they're deceased, right? But they're no longer living as such, so to speak. So me as a 5-year-old, I'd love to invite him to see what I'd be like. Me as a 15-year-old, me as a 25-year-old, and me as a 35-year-old. How's that? 4 already?
One more. You got one more.
Then it'd be a pretty hard one from. Actually, my hero is Nelson Mandela. So I'd I was tossing about Gandhi and Mandela, but I'd go with Mandela.
Perfect.
Yeah, I reckon that that will be a fascinating conversation to have.
Especially with four of you.
Yeah.
Me and all my personalities.
Right. He's definitely got his work cut out for him.
But can you imagine that? Like, I would be fascinated to actually hear from myself of what I thought. And so I wouldn't change a thing in my life, like I said.
I think that's the best answer to that question I've ever heard. That makes so much sense too. I like it. Yeah.
It'll be fun. You asked a fun question, so I gave you a fun answer.
Well, thanks so much, Sarab. And
thanks for your time.
It's been really fruitful.
You are both welcome, and well done to all of you in that Ninja software. I think that's a remarkable thing you guys are doing. It's only going to actually help people, and I think somewhere down the line we need to resign to the fact that this journey of actually helping and assisting mindsets in people is you've got to realize somewhere you're going to get on that train and somewhere you're going to get off that train, but the train needs to keep going. And so I'm thrilled that your organization's sort of taken that on, and you've got all of our support.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Good luck. Cheers.
All right.
No worries. Thanks,
We'll talk
Sarab.
soon.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Sarab.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
See you then.
You've made it to the end of another episode of Tech Society. If anything Sarab shared with us today got you thinking, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter @Tech Society, and make sure you visit the website techsociety.fm and sign up to the newsletter. New episodes drop every Wednesday and Friday, so make sure you tune in. Tech Society is sponsored by Ninja Software.